Hey everyone, I'm Doug Zanger, founder of Indie Agency News. I've been covering this industry for a long time, long enough to know when people are scared, when they're angry and confused. And right now, that's a lot of you. That's a lot of you right now. The Omnicom IPG merger just got approved. You've got other holding companies laying people off across the board, making what they call strategic restructuring decisions. Corporate speak for. Your job may be gone. Your security may be gone. And you're supposed to what? Quietly update your LinkedIn profile and hope for the best? No. Here's what I want you to know. You are not a line item, a spreadsheet. You are not a casualty of market forces. You are a talented professional who has been building skills, relationships, and expertise that has a ton of value. And you have another option. For the past year, my colleague Christian Ganny, co-founder at Outerkind in Denver, has been hosting a show called Year One. Every episode, he sits down with founders of independent agencies and asks them the real questions. How did you start? What were you scared of? How did you do this? Christian's done a remarkable job with this show. He doesn't let people off easy. He digs into the messy parts, the scary parts, the parts where you're not sure you're going to make payroll, or if you made the biggest mistake of your life. And here's what we've learned over and over again on this. The people who started their own thing, they were sitting exactly where you are right now. Burnt out, frustrated, pushed aside, fed up with agencies run by math companies that don't give a damn about the work or the people making it. But they did something about it. So here's what we're going to do. We went through every Year One episode so far and pulled some moments that matter most right now. Talking about like the tipping points, the honest truth about what it takes, the practical advice, how to get started, and most importantly, some inspiration to make you believe you can do this, because you can. You absolutely can. You'll hear from Flavio at Rise, New York, who had a panic attack at the top of his career and realized he needed to build something different. You'll hear from Rachel at Foulmouth Creative, who got tired of being told to let the men lead the meeting. She sent a text to her partners and launched an agency 6 weeks later. You'll hear from Josh at Fairby Lane, who watched his agency get acquired by IPG and decided he wanted to fail on his own terms, not someone else's. You got Brian at Perception, Alex from Kite, Will at Sailor, Adam at Decal, and you got teams at Partyland, Superheroes, and Uncharted. All Indie Agency News members giving you the real. And all of them started where you are right now. Uncertain, maybe scared, not sure if they had what it takes. And every single one of them will tell you you already have what you need. This is your lighthouse in this wicked storm. That was a little corporate speaking, but it is. You'll hear the truth about starting an independent agency, the good, the hard, and the absolutely possible. The indie agency community is waiting for you. Your agency starts now.
Well, on a personal level, if I could bring a little bit of vulnerability here, is burnout, right? I was completely burnt out on agencies. I was on the top of the world in New York on a global ECD position, in the biggest holdco. And I had this epiphany of saying, like, man, I don't want to do this bullshit anymore. I'm having panic attacks and I'm having mental health problems, right? So on a personal level, I decided to kind of quit advertising altogether. But basically, a week later, I said, oh shit, I need to make money. Fuck this. So advertising is the only thing that I know how to make some money and how to to navigate my life and provide to my family. So I decided to kind of go freelance, but it kind of didn't work well pretty much because I felt that still I was doing the same bullshit and just as an independent creative. I was like, okay, so maybe I need to kind of open up my own creative boutique. That's kind of like I called it back then. I didn't want to call it agency because I didn't feel that we were an agency anyways, right? We were just like a bunch of dudes trying to come up with ideas, and kind of like pitching our work together. And that's how I decided to kind of like put some thought into it and say, okay, so maybe I will use all my 30 years or 20 years career, to work, and look back, do a little soul searching, if you will, and try to carve out everything that I learned that was good, from this industry, and everything that was bad, and kind of separate both, and kind of just at least try to move forward with the good things that I learned, and build, something from the ground up. That was kind of the I wouldn't call it epiphany. I know like many agency owners, they've been through the same process, but that was, how's happened to me. How was my process?
It had always percolated in the back of my brain, through, the big agencies that I had been at. A lot of big holding companies was where I sort of started my career. And then, I had some smaller agency experience as well. And honestly, it was the last place I was. I was a partner at it, and it was a hybrid production creative shop. And I was brought in to help build out that creative arm a little bit and that strategy arm. And it just didn't hit, for a number of different reasons. But ultimately, I was partnered with two older men, and even though I was a business partner in it, I still was running into a lot of conversations with them like, hey, you know what, like in this client meeting, why don't we let X, Y, and Z take the lead, because people respond better to men in meetings. Or, hey, let's make sure that you tone it down. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't be yourself. And I was so fucking over it. I was so done with it. And that sort of fizzled out. And the explosive day that it fizzled is a soft word for what happened. But the day that I realized that it wasn't going to be the right fit at that other place, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. If these assholes can start an agency, I can start an agency. And I reached out to my two now business partners, and it was honestly just this beautiful happenstance of synchronicity that my now managing director, Jordan Hughes, and my longtime creative partner, Tessa Paneri, were both in positions to jump ship and start an agency right along with me. It was great. Like I sent a text to them and I was like, hey, do you guys want to start our own agency? Like 90 seconds later, Jordan texts back and she's like, fuck yes, I'm in. 6 weeks later, we launched. So that was as fast as it went. And like the second that decision was made, we were like, fucking go, like pedal on, let's go. We got all of our stuff together. We got all of our site. We, had amazing help from Steve Sapka to get us the PR to get in and really get some splash and notice that way. And we were off to the races. It was 6 weeks.
I remember it well, very well. Let's call it, you're right, this is our 20th anniversary. 22 years ago was that tipping point. So I worked at a wonderful agency that I was actually a boomerang. I worked there twice. And I was there the second time. And part of in the back of my mind, I always thought about, could I be the next generation of leadership at this agency? Well, they made a wonderful decision for them for a number of reasons, and they sold to IPG. And at that moment, I started to wonder kind of what is my path? You can do wonderful things, there and whatnot, but I wanted to have the ability to make decisions about business. I trusted my ability to make those decisions. And if they didn't work out, if I failed, I wanted to do because of my decisions, not because of somebody else. And so really 22 years ago was that tipping point.
For me and my co-founder, we were working at an other agency at the time. And we were quite successful with that agency, but it got acquired by a bigger group and we lost a bit of our independence. And And we thought, like we can do this ourselves as well, not really knowing like what we were stepping into, because, one of the things that you actually think like when you start your own agency is that you're going to have like a lot of freedom. And freedom you have in spirit, but the reality is also the moment that you have your first employee, that you are also responsible for that person. You need to make sure that you are there yourself, and from that moment onwards, like the story changes a little bit. So it's not just about yourself and having a good time anymore, but it's making sure that as a team that you're having a great time and that you're growing and start to make more impact. So yeah, I don't know, like for us, we started kind of let's have fun. Then reality kicked in, like all right, this is going to be quite serious. And then we thought, okay, how can we do it in a fun way, so that it stays interesting for ourselves? And yeah, it really helped, of course, that we wanted to be this agency that is saving the world from boring advertising, which allowed us also to bring in that cheekiness, and to work with clients that were looking for the same thing.
It's plural. Moments. A lot of moments. Probably going way back to my Chicago days. I was at McGarry-Bone for a while. I mean, I guess the way to preface this would be, I think like a lot of us in this industry have had a healthy love-hate relationship with the ad business. And so there was a lot of asking why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing it that way? So I wouldn't say it was one sort of formidable moment that was like, oh, I want to start an agency. It was just sort of brick by brick, maybe paper cut by paper cut of like, walking out of pitch rooms at big agencies and going, whoa, we are not solving their problems. We are selling them services. And then that sort of stayed there. And then, down the road, it was another thing. When I was a client, it was like, oh man, great agencies. I get to work with great agencies, and I had a great in-house team, but man, the agency was like a black box, right? So, and a lot of it was it was like operational sort of approach to servicing clients that kind of built up, like something's got to change. So that was sort of the first part of it. And then there were other moments where it was like, when I started getting more deeper into strategic planning and road mapping and all of that stuff, especially with my job at Carhartt, it was just like, why are we relying so much on demographics? Like, we're just not painting a clear picture of who it is we're talking to and what they care about, and do we talk about that? Like, do we talk that way at dinner parties when we meet people? It's like, what's your household income and your gender and your where you live and your education? And it's like, no, we talk about the things we're interested in. So to answer your question, finally, it was a lot of different moments that added up to maybe there's a different way to do this. So I didn't just wake up one day and go, hey, let's come up with a funny name and stand up a Squarespace site and say we're agency veterans and we're smaller and faster. Like it had to be something a little more meaningful than that.
Why did the world need Partyland when you guys sat down around a round table and said fire roasting marshmallows? Did you guys decide the world needed Partyland? I don't know, Haley or Matt, if you would like to tackle that one.
Yeah, it didn't.
Great, we'll move right along.
I think it didn't. No, and I do mean that. But we did. We needed it, and sometimes, in our line of work, you got to be a little selfish. You got to do what's right for your own career trajectory. And in our case, it was more of finding the proper outlet for, our kind of creativity that we wanted to put out there. And just, I don't know, I think we kind of wanted to prove to ourselves that we could do it. And it just sounded fun. And, we didn't anticipate sitting here at year 8 now talking about Partyland. I think if you told me that we were going to be 8 years old someday, I would have probably said like, maybe. that. But we're definitely having as much fun now as we were when we got to play fast and loose. And I think I'm really proud that, those opening vibes that we had, what we wanted to do and what we wanted to get away with and how we thought we could help brands still, are is the mission today. And we're achieving that. So proud of that.
You're right. We both were at other really great agencies, big and small, but got the chance to experience them in different parts of their evolution. And even like one example is Matt and I were both at BBH LA, which was a new small office that had, a big giant New York and London and other agency mothership. So just getting a little bit of a taste of like, okay, we're at a big agency within a holding company and a small shop that started with, 2, 4, and then 20 some people and grew from there. So I think getting to see all of the different sides of what an agency can look like, and then coming out of it, learning a little bit of like what you do and then what you don't want to do. But essentially, Matt was making incredible work. I can brag and speak for him a little bit, and just making really great work in general. And then everybody in the industry was calling, and it's like, take your pick. Where do you want to go? And there wasn't a place that, he wanted to go that would have fit all of the bill. And then I personally was running just about every department within an agency besides creative at that point. And I wanted to bring a type of culture and empathy and a way to support the creative department within my own agency as well.
I think it was entrepreneurial, to be honest. I think it was more, I'd go into the office. I'm someone who likes to work early in the morning, and I would get in the office at like 6 a.m. I'd work before 9. I get all the stuff I had to get done creatively and conceptually, and I'd see the owner come in, or I'd see people like that in the office. And I always had this idea, and I don't know why, but just like, if he can do it, why can't I do it? Like, if he can run something, why can't I run something? Like, what makes him different? Or, the whole idea of like, everybody puts on their pants one leg at a time kind of thing. So anybody can really do it if they have the desire to drive and become that person, I think. But then, as well, I'm sure you get your lumps along the way, and it shapes who you become as a leader as it goes. But like, anybody can pull it off. And I think seeing other people doing it and seeing that there's no real magic behind there, it's just a lot of reps. And after all those reps happen and all those push-ups, all of a sudden you're in the game. So that's kind of how I see it.
Wind back the clock to 2021. I had just left Netflix. I was there for a few years running their comedy brand, Netflix is a Joke. And I left the company after sending every single person I knew there, essentially that like knew my name, a personal love letter, just to remember me. And I don't know really why I did that, because I don't think I knew at the time that I was about to start an agency, but I had a feeling that that network and that community was going to be really important in the future. And so, spent about a month, luckily fielding a few job offers and things like that after, but kept on kind of thinking through the reality of kind of what I was going to miss from Netflix, and ultimately like how I approached work in general. And I just realized I kind of like I like to work, and I also like obsess over whatever I'm working on. So much so that like I expect obviously the work and the results of that work to pay me back in full, like to meet me at my obsessive level. And if they're not, I kind of resent it. And so I think that I quickly learned after spending a few weeks considering other jobs that I
was never going to feel that way unless I started something of my own. And ultimately, at that point, had worked on the brand side of entertainment for about a decade. All of my friends at all of these entertainment studios, I worked at Disney prior to Netflix, held the marketing budgets to, for these titles and brands and things like that they managed. And I had worked with a plethora of different agencies and production companies up to that point. So I knew what I liked and what I didn't like. I knew the people who held the money, and that gave me the confidence that I could build something better, an agency that I would have wanted to work with, and that ultimately all my friends and colleagues would have trusted inherently because they knew me. So that kind of was the tipping point I needed to take the plunge and take the leap, and chaos followed.
I guess when you talk about Cristiano, maybe the creative freedom and the flexibility to choose the projects you want to work on creatively, that's a benefit, with maybe the drawback being when you look behind you, there's not a whole host of staff ready to pick up what you need as a support. Can you just talk us through maybe how the process is different, or the making of the sausage is different at an independent agency?
I think you just have to be sharper, right? You have to know, pretty well who can do what well, and everybody just doing their best to achieve. I mean, you don't have the fat in the sausage, right?
That's right.
It just becomes very lean and smart. That's kind of what it is, and it works. Somehow, sometimes managing a smaller team is easier than manage a bigger team, because a lot goes to waste in the bigger team. When you're working and you're part of, there are 5 teams working, you are one of them, let's say, and you're working for a CCO, maybe there is a chance that your work is not going to come see the light of the day. Maybe the other team gets along better with the CCO. But when you work with a smaller team, that's all you got, and they know what it comes out is their work. So they're also going to work way more for that. There's something interesting that is a very different dynamic overall. But I think it's like being able as an agency to have a point of view in the projects we work also brings a special kind of client to work with us. I think it's everything that, and it's just more, let's not make something huge that we're not going to enjoy anymore.
Like, there's no reason why we can't do this ourselves, right? Like, we don't need a bank to manage our business. We don't need people looking after us and almost like, hey, you should be doing the thing that you do, which is kind of being an artist or whatever. So yeah, I think we have a vision enough, and we're grown-ups enough to take the lead and lead both, right? Like, lead a business, and also be a creative powerhouse. I think that's what's behind Rise, because it's more about, like, not trying to be so deep, but like, it's kind of like, can we rise back again in this creative industry, which is, to me, very weird that we call it creative industry and we're led by financial dudes.
Yeah, look, a creative business that's led by bean counters is a recipe for unsuccessful ventures, let's just say. So we are in complete agreement there.
Yeah, I think I was just curious to see how creativity worked. I mean, when you are on client side, you write your briefs and you write your decks. I was really curious to see, okay, how do these guys actually come to these ideas? And at the moment, in the beginning, I was really a bit impatient, like, Jesus, why do you take 3 days to come up with that? And why are you looking into that direction? But I sort of understood that it's like a little walk you take, and you take a left side and then you go back to the middle, and at the end you end on to it. So that's I think it's been the most interesting part, to see how ideas come to life. And I like to witness it.
The 3 of us had all worked together at a previous agency, and during 2020, I think. There was a one-off conversation that I had with Jordan Hughes, and she was the West Coast account director for this agency. And she and I hit it off. We worked together on a number of clients. And then Tessa, was my design counterpart during this. And Jordan and I had a conversation once in 5 minutes of like, why don't we just start our own? And we're like, haha, yeah. Anyway. And then whatever it was, 3.5 years later, it came to fruition. So here's the thing that I feel like we got right above everything else. And it's the trust and the chemistry we have between the three of us is unparalleled to anything I've had before, ever. And that chemistry comes through when we're doing our work together. And then also when we're talking with our client partners and, any other partnerships that we have on it is we have fun together. We love each other. We trust each other. That doesn't mean that we don't disagree on things. We disagree on stuff all the time, but it's in a healthy way and we talk through it. And in fact, even in our sort of like launch bylaws that we wrote, we have something very specific called the Uranus clause, that if at any point, if the three of us are having some sort of headbutting issue with anything, right? Like a direction of a project or a business itself, anything like that. And we can tell that it's going to get contentious. Any one of us can say Uranus, and that is the immediate sign to pause and we sleep on it and revisit it that next day. It ends the conversation right there. We're all like, cool, revisit. 100% of the time that next day, we're like, oh, cool, let's come to a meeting here. And it's no stress, no issue. It's so healthy. It's so healthy.
So we didn't have a client, and we probably should. I would highly recommend that. But before you do that, really figure out what is your unique proposition as an agency. What unmet need are you going to fulfill for a client? Because, as we all know, a client can become suddenly become what the agency is all about, or a reflection of the agency.
You decided to build this with someone else. Is that right? Could you talk us through sort of what your thought process was and how important that decision was?
Yeah. So Matt's, as I mentioned, he's a writer by trade. I'm an account person. We had worked together for about 2 years. And so we saw the world, I'll say kind of, our values are very similar. We approach things a little bit differently as an account person and a writer may do that. We shared a common appreciation and love for strategy. And so we got along really well. And I'll be honest, some people gave us advice not to have, and we have a 50-50 partnership, not to have a 50-50 partnership because you want somebody to be a tiebreaker. And because we knew each other so well and because we trust each other, we always look out for the best interest of each other. We said 50-50 would work for us. And it has never been a day to where that has ever been an issue whatsoever. But I'll tell you the other benefit of having a partner who is equal to myself is that I'm not alone. I've got somebody else to go through this with who I can talk to about anything that is going on, whether it's family and how all the work as a independent year one at the time agency owner is going through, to making decisions for the business. And that relationship between the two of us has stayed close the entire time. We actually shared an office for the first 2 or 3 years so we could have continual conversations.
Yeah, I had made a connection with a potential client. And I think this ties into the impetus of starting the agency. Meeting a client who said, we have a great product, we just don't have creative work. We really need creative, he described it as creative copy. This was David McElvaney, head of McElvaney Financial Group, it's our biggest client. We've done the most work with them. And he said, we have this great product. I met him at a trade show in Vegas. He said, we have a great product and just don't have creative ideas. I thought maybe, well, this is what I've done with my career. Maybe I can help you with that. So the conversation began there, and then it became clear that the first project would be strategy. So I went looking for a strategist on that, for that project, and got in touch with Tim Anderson, who's now our head of strategy. And we partnered on that first project that was all of a 7-day project. And that turned into, the client was very happy with that. And that turned into a budget for first campaign, brand platform, first creative work. And then that turned into an AOR relationship. So I pulled Tim into the fold on that. And he's our head of strategy now and works on all the things with me. And then we pulled in more people as needed, and that's continued to be the operation we have now of pulling specialists in. We do have project manager, creative director. There's a team of about 4 or 5 of us, and then a handful of others. But it's just as the need kind of presented itself.
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, you're actually maybe a little different than some of the others we've talked to on the show that sort of assembled a small team before they kicked off and launched. You actually launched this on your own and brought in talent in response to some of the opportunities you were seeing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I filed the paperwork for the company and did nothing with it. I just had it as a collection of 3 Tennessee state documents. All right, I've got a company now. And then as the opportunity presented itself, built a team around that and the agency around that.
Man, in that first year, there were only 2 moments. One was we made there's a point of personal pride, never to miss payroll, even if it was just for Matt and myself. And we both had young families. So when I left to start the agency with Matt, gosh, I think our daughter was 20 months old. My wife had just left the job that she was at, and we had a 2-month-old. And Matt was in a very similar situation. And there was one time to where I thought we were going to miss payroll. Again, payroll was just reporting back to our wives, who are the most important. And fortunately, that check showed up literally hours before they expected to see those checks. And that was one moment where I may get to a little later, has really shaped how we've run this agency, never to be in that situation. The other part was by working at a holding company, by working at a larger agency, I was fortunate to work with some really large brands, had great budgets, doing some really interesting work. And that first year, man, we started off, fortunately, with a great client that gave us a small retainer. But we were trying to add on some other smaller clients, and they were small, Christian. They were real small, and they didn't understand advertising. And we were doing things for like $1,500, $500. And at that moment, I'm like, man, is this what it's going to be about? Am I always going to work on these super small, unsophisticated? They don't really care because I'm just chasing after this dollar. And I talked to Matt about it. I'm like, we've got to push forward and try to figure out what our approach is, what our positioning is, and start working with people who really appreciate the value that we can bring. And so it wasn't a questioning of, did I make a wrong decision? It was more of, we've got to try to make something happen here, because neither of us want to continue to work with some of the, I don't want to call them brands, some of the local small clients that you just hoped the paycheck or the check would show up the next day, and you didn't really care about what you were doing.
My biggest tip, I would never do it without really knowing and understanding who the partners I was starting out with are. And I wouldn't do it on my own. And the reason for that is it is super fun, but it is really hard. And everyone has both, their work passions and the things that they're great at, also things maybe that they're not so great at, and also has the rest of their lives. Sometimes you will be flying, and sometimes you are going to be kind of, stuck in a rut or having to prioritize something else for a minute. And I think it's so important to make sure that you have partners you can work with who all trust each other, who all have different kinds of skills, so you're not concentrated on one side or the other as much as possible. Trust each other to have their back, and also are rangy enough to be able to step in. I think that's been the great thing with Fern and Hattie and I, is we've been around a long time, but we're still, like, the 3 of us very much in the work. So when you are starting a business, you do have to do everything from designing an Instagram post to doing artworking to, doing that spreadsheet, to keeping the meeting notes, to like doing strategy, big and small, and everything in between. So finding that partnership where you can lean in and support one another and help one another is really key, and that you have enough honesty between the three of you to be able to also put your hands up when things aren't working. I think one of the things I love the most, working with Fern, is she can be really, really punchy, but she's also a really, really great friend. And often what she says is absolutely bang on most of the time, actually. I'd say probably all of the time. But that little bit of rub makes the work better. So you need to be able to create an atmosphere which is super supportive, but also like you're comfortable putting your hand up if something's not working.
Biggest myth about running your own agency? Go. You might have already answered it.
That it's really difficult. It's not actually really difficult. It's, there are trials, but it's not the most impossible thing. So don't overthink it. It's not that hard.
Biggest myth about running your own agency is what?
Man, I don't know if it's a myth, but the first thing is that it's easy. And maybe that's clearly not a myth, but it is the number of decisions that you have to make. And I guess when I look out of my office now, and we've got just about 40 people, it is, and sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, and it's not rapid fire, but ultimately I'm looking at there's about 150 people depending upon us every single day to deliver. And that's the myth that when you start your own thing, it's only you and your business partner, your partners, man, but it's so much bigger than that.
Does what matter to you and your founders influence your work? And if so, maybe share an example or two how that might come to life.
It does. I think in general, one of the things that Tony would, when he's done talks and anytime we've appeared together for, to do a talk or whatever, the thing that drew him to this was he had been around brands and agencies, for many, many years. And whether it was skateboarding or other sort of subculture driven interests that are being depicted in advertising or, in a commercial or whatever, he just saw through how sort of inauthentic it really was. And the word authenticity gets thrown around a lot, and everyone wants it, and everyone says they need it and go after it. But for us, it kind of is the holy grail. Above that is strategy, and we have found a way to make sure that there's a lot of authenticity built into our strategy and how we get to know audiences a lot better. That's a whole nother segment. But it really comes down to let's make sure that any of the work we do is believable, right? It has to entertain, and it has to be emotive, or it has to be funny, or it has to elicit all those emotions. But at the end of the day, it has to be believable, and people have to see themselves in it. I would say our work for Wolverine is a great example of that. To really truly understand hardworking blue collar folks. Of course, I had a bit of a head start working at Carhartt for a while. You go out and touch grass. You go out and you talk to them. And one of the best lines in was a whole campaign, a whole brand platform called Outdo Every Day. Is really about the boots that they make. They've been making for 150 years. Comfort is sort of the price of entry. It's about outlasting. It's about being on your feet all day. And anyone in the trades will tell you, even in the military. But we were talking to a guy who owns a big excavating company. And he said, look behind me. I've got $2.5 million worth of equipment here. But the most important tool I own is attached to my legs. And as a writer, I was like, ooh, that's a line. But it wasn't just the line. It was that was the little gift of the insight.
little insight gift that we built most of it on, and that line did end up in one of the spots, but we embedded ourselves with 3 different families who have owned family businesses in the trades for more than 3 generations. So I think it's like 72% of family businesses in the skilled trades don't last past the 2nd generation. We went and found 3 and 4th generation family businesses in the trades, and we literally embedded ourselves with them to create the brief, not to shoot. And then once we narrowed it down, we started with about 12 of them. We narrowed it down to 3, and we went and spent time with them and brought cameras with us that time and shot everything documentary first. So all the spots, all the ads were made from that stuff, including the actual little mini documentaries. But that's what's important to us. To bring it back to your original question, that's what's important to us is truth, and that it is serving the strategy. And because there is a through line from a 30-second video that someone might see on YouTube all the way up to that time we spent with those folks to develop our brief.
Literally, I've been terrified of the TikTok ban ever since it was first floated back at like Biden, or I don't even know what, like back in like 2010. I don't even know when it's been around. But yeah, hilariously, there's been so many kind of like storms on the horizon that haven't, taken shape and destroyed our, metaphorical ship. It's like, I don't know. I think in the early days, I was doing everything. I didn't have a co-founder or, some agency operator to call. I actually really liked the feeling of like learning new things every day. And I was totally on YouTube University, learning how to do accounting, figuring out how to, pay my taxes and to, stay up to date with all things EDD. It's these random things that when you don't know them and you don't fully understand them, they can really freak you out. And I think made it my business to like learn everything I could about the facets of business that I had never had the opportunity to get a window into until I started one. So that was a, massive part of my early education. And a lot of those things I thought were like the big, scary, wild things that were going to destroy us, like cash flow is and will always be for independent indie agencies a big deal. But it's like in the early days, oh my God, you are like moving personal money and freaking business money back and forth. You're figuring it out. You're like, oh my God, am I not going to be able to pay my employees? What am I going to say to them? Then you're like, oh my God, I got paid in the last second here. Now everyone gets their money. It's just those things kind of come and go. And it's funny, over time, you just get used to it, and they don't become scary anymore.
There's so much good stuff that you talked about there, but I did want to circle back. I do want to talk about comedy in a second, because I think it's obviously a hallmark of what you guys do with just about every client. So you talked about how you wanted a place or you talked about how employees sometimes are not empowered to do their best work. Do you empower your employees to do their best work? And if so, how do you do that? How do you do it differently than what some of these larger holdcos tend to do?
Well, that's a really good question, and probably a whole podcast on that. I don't want to monopolize.
For sure. Yeah.
In an effort to be brief, I'll use a briefing that we had today as an example. We have a brand that we're pitching. It's really exciting. They came to us, which is an important element of this, right? They know what we do, and I think that's at year 8, that's kind of the proliferation of like who we are and what we do is kind of like hit advertising culture, to a certain extent. And so brands come to us not asking us to do anything that isn't us. They know what we do. They've heard about us. They've seen our work, and they want us to come as party land. And, when you're briefing the team, you basically say, look, the only way you're going to fail is if you aren't completely selfish with the ideas that you bring back to us. And I don't want to see anything that feels like you're trying to work towards being right. I want to see what it looks like when you are just doing whatever you want that answers the brief. And, people who work here have complete and control over what ideas they bring to the table. And I've never once said to anybody, I would just like, the idea is abhorrent. But, I've never said that was bad, that you went too far. There's always something in if somebody has passion about it and you trust the people that you hire, which we do, even if the idea it feels far afield, there is something in there that came from a very, place of great intelligence and, an energetic flow. And we just try to find that and amplify that little piece. So if it's wrong from a brief perspective, it's not going to be wrong, from an overall perspective. We can do our job as creative directors and help them find the right idea in there. So that's a long-winded way of saying we empower people and expect people to be inventive creatives. I don't want to see tracing. I don't want to see ideas that come from, that feel like they were ads from other places or things that we've seen before. We're not in the business of doing diet comedy here.
I wanted to start with the human side of the equation that you've built at the Perception Agency. It's clear, I think you call it altogether human.
Sure.
And I wanted to start there. Tell us why it's important to you, why it drives some of the things that you do for some of your clients. And I think that leads into some of the new agency stuff that we'll talk through.
Cool, sure. Altogether human. It's something that we kind of fell into, but it was in my DNA. It's in our ethos as an agency. It's something that we kind of talked about, and we were like, who do we want to be and what kind of work do we want to do? And when we started actually going out into the world and, working with clients, we always found ourselves diving into this point of we could just do creative, or we could do something that has effect and helps people, or that is smart or creative in some way that's just not like creative for creative's sake. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we wanted to do something that felt a little bit different for some of our clients. And it's just a level of caring, I think, that I have for individual people to make sure that the work really matters, if they're checking a box. So that's kind of where Altogether Human came from. And it's also a part of this idea of we want to make sure that we are treating end users like real people. We're not just seeing them as data points or nodes. We see them as our neighbors, as everyone out there. And then also Altogether Human refers to the actual marketer that hires you. There are individuals that take a bet with their career to say, I'm going to bring you in. I'm giving you budget to do something that's going to mean something for my company. And we have to treat them with as much respect as we possibly can. So it's kind of having that process. And then lastly, I say it touches the internal person. If someone I've always thought, if I've convinced you to take a bet with us and join our agency, I have to treat you like a human being and know that you have people counting on you on the other side. So that could be your family, it's your career, it's all these things you're trusting by coming here. So even if you were not the right person, I have to release you back to the world the right way so that you can continue with whatever your career is as well.
I assume you've used the most powerful word in the English language, which is no, it's not a good fit with clients, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yes. The same client I mentioned to you before, I had to walk away because it was like a toxic relationship where towards the end of it, it just got to a spot where I called the CMO and I was like, listen, I think I got to walk away from this. We've already fulfilled everything in the contract and we're trying to roll over into a new contract, but and everything was a la carte at that point to get through the end of the year. But I said, I think it's just not healthy for us as an agency. And this isn't a future I want, is this kind of relationship. And, I've walked away and, so yeah, it's a tough thing to do, but it's a necessary evil, I guess.
There are so many other ways of kind of slicing things these days. And I think we all feel that it's been a race to the bottom for a long time, right? We all feel that the things that are of real value to our clients to grow their businesses are brilliant strategy, brilliant creative, those sort of integrated thinking and ideas, the ability to kind of measure and feedback. All of these things are where the value is to a client, and yet the value is so often placed on, beautiful design, thoughtful design, the craft. And instead, the value is often placed in the wrong place because that's easier to measure. So it's, how many hours is it taken to make X number of assets, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We are going to, as an industry, we already are, right? AI is coming for so many little pieces of what it is that we do. Our industry is going to survive, but we need to refocus on where the value is to our clients and understand how to both charge for that, and to make sure that what we're doing, to be really accountable for the fact that our work helps their businesses grow as well. Yeah. That's something else that kind of tends to get broken through the line. There's been so many clients I've spoken to who've said the answer to the brief has been, a TV ad because that's what they know how to do, or those are the people that are kind of sitting around the office. We need to be smarter than that as an industry if we want to kind of continue doing amazing work into the future.
Honestly, be outspoken. The unusual choices people make them, and that's the same for brands and agencies. Make those unusual choices. Be weird and wonderful and complex. That's what it's all about. That's this whole experience, and it's the heart and the essence of creativity is trying something new. And if it fails, make sure you fail spectacularly. Don't go quiet into that good night.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I think that's, to someone sitting on the sidelines who's listening into that, I think your story will resonate more than most, just given the good ideas are often born out of frustration.
Yeah.
And
stay mad.
Yeah, stay mad, curse a lot, except around your parents.
I think that you will be amazed with what you're capable of. I think that there is everyone I've talked to about starting this company has the same question, like, why did you do it? And how did you do it? And it's like, why? Like, everyone has a reason for doing something new, especially when they are really used to something, when they really fully understand something. It's like, you have to ask yourself what's next. And if you can't think of an exciting opportunity at your current current organization or within your current industry, like, you have to start thinking about what you could ultimately build that is so fulfilling because it's yours, and I just think people are pretty incredible and are very capable. So even if you have doubts, talk to your friend. Maybe they'll want to go in on it with you. Maybe you just need a backup, or maybe you're just bullish on an idea and you want to take the leap. I think, like, there are little things like, making sure you have money that you need to maybe ask yourself, can you ask your partner to cover you for a few months if you don't make any money, or things like that will allow you to take a little bit of a leap. But at the end of the day, you're going to be so thankful you did. And even if you fail and you join another operation and organization right off the bat, it's still going to be a wonderful learning experience and one that you'll think back on fondly.
I think there's no better time to do it. It's a really tough time in many ways. Like, the market, US, Europe, globally, is oversupplied and challenging. And, things like tenure of CMOs have gone down, and there's it's not an easy market to get into. But at the same time, in a way, no better time to do it because there's so much change happening. There's going to continue to be even more change. I think the pace of change is going to continue. I think the market's going to open up to a lot more new niche players as well. So if you've got something in your head that's perhaps smart and niche and answers a certain really good need, then I think it's a really great time to do it. Also, the barrier to entry is much lower than it used to be. As you said, you used to need a bunch of permanent people to be able to deliver anything, and they need to have boots on the grounds in those markets you're working in. And nowadays you can be much more agile. There's amazing talent out there in every market available. So I think the barriers to entry lower. So I'm a big believer they should just go for it. But at the same time, I appreciate it's a lot. It might not be for everybody. And, it's going to be challenging because the market is challenging, but it's a lot of fun. It's so fun. We work in an industry, despite all its challenges, and we all, moan about pitching and things like that. It is fun. The people are awesome. Briefs are interesting. We do amazing work when we're at our best. And there's a lot worse places to be.
Amen to that. Susan, I remember when you first started, I remember getting this really genuine enthusiasm for when we won a pitch or something, or an idea got approved, these things that you kind of take for granted when you've been making stuff for a while. But it was contagious, sort of the enthusiasm. We did it.
That's I try to keep that up. I'm still so happy if a client is like, wow, this was an excellent presentation. It's still
it's a grind. But it's very, very rewarding when you see it all come together. When you see either a younger staff member get to a level, or even they worked here and had an opportunity to become a partner at another place and go do that, or your work is running on television or this or that. You see that and you're like, that was just an idea I had, is to start an agency. I can't believe that thing came together to become something that stood for something and stands for something. You know?
What do you say to those that are sitting on the sidelines, just sort of kicking a tire, thinking about what life would be like if I started something of my own?
If you're going to go for it, make sure you love it. There's no escaping this. You're in. But it changes. It can change and evolve just like your normal career within advertising does, but it's up to you to be able to do that. You really need to understand what your purpose is. Why are you doing this? And keep that in mind. If you're not sure, we get asked this question a lot. And I've been asked this question on panels where, just not everybody quite understands what they're in it for. And I say, go for it. The other thing I really do want to urge to is there's so many great newish, independent, or evolving shops out there that would probably like to hear from you also. If you have that entrepreneurial spirit, or if you have learned what you don't want at the big agency, those other agencies, that are a few years in or starting out might have a place for you as well.
Don't downplay the skill set that you've developed. I feel like as a creative, sometimes in an agency, you might feel that the idea is undervalued, especially if there are rounds and rounds on a brief. If it feels like you're revisiting a deck for the 7th, 8th time, and you're wondering about the value of your creative thinking, it's a question of where you take that and how you apply it. And if you're good at what you do and you developed a strong skill set, there is a market and opportunity for that in a different context that can be really rewarding. So sometimes it's not just about working harder and trying to grind harder in the place you're in. It's stepping out into a new situation, and then all of a sudden there's fruit from that.
Yeah.
In a way that you didn't imagine could be possible. And then it is ultimately about satisfaction in your work and what gets you up and what's thrilling to you and what's
some pride of ownership.